Well, hello and welcome to Fieldcourt Infant Academy's Bedtime Stories. I'm sat here on our bus, our wonderful reading bus surrounded by our books and a few heaters now, and thought I'd bring in some of my daughter's squishmallows to enjoy a story with us. See how many you can spot whilst I read Tyrannosaurus Drip by Julia Donaldson and David Roberts. In a swamp beside a river, where the land was thick with veg, lived a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs who roamed the water's edge. And they hooted up with the rivers, and they hooted up with the reeds, and they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water reeds. Now across the rushy river, on a hill on the other side, lived a Tyrannosaurus with his grim and grisly bride. And they shouted, "Up with the hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" They look mean, don't they? Ooh. But the two Tyrannosauruses, so grizzly, mean and green, couldn't catch the duck-billed dinosaurs because they couldn't swim. And they muttered, "Down with the water." And they muttered, "Down with wet." And they muttered, "What a shame that bridges aren't invented yet." Now a little Compsognathus. Even Mr. Osborne has to sound things out. Compsognathus. But for short we'll call him Comp. Oh, thank goodness. Call her Comp. Found a duckbill egg and stole it from a nest beside the swamp. And she swam with it, and she ran with it, and murmured, "Oh, clever me! And won't the baby Comps be thrilled with duckbill egg for..." Oh. Tea! She dropped the egg in terror and went running for her life from the mean Tyrannosaurus and his grim and grisly wife. And the duckbill egg went rolling, and at last it came to rest in, of all unlikely places, the Tyrannosaurus nest. Oh no. Now the mother T had great big jaws and great enormous legs, but her brain was rather little and she couldn't count her eggs. And she sang, "Hatch out, my terrors, with your scaly little tails, and your spiky little toothies, and your scary little nails." It's not going to all be Tyrannosaurus Rexes. Out hatch babies 1 and 2, as perfect as can be. But Mother T was horrified by baby number 3. And she grumbled, "Oh, he looks weedy." And she grumbled, "Oh, he looks weak." And she grumbled, "What long arms, and look, his mouth is like a beak." "He just needs feeding up," said Dad, and gave the babes some meat. The first 2 gulped and guzzled, and the third refused to eat. And he said, "I'm really sorry." And he said, "I simply can't." And he said, "This meat looks horrible. I'd rather eat a plant." "A plant!" yelled Mum in horror. "Oh my goodness," Dad said, "get a grip. His sisters found a name for him. It was Tyrannosaurus Drip." And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" Poor Tyrannosaurus Drip tried hard to sing along, but the others yelled, "You silly Drip, you got the words all wrong." For he hooted, "Down with hunting!" And he hooted, "Down with war!" And he hooted, "Down with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur." He's not the same, is he? Drip sisters soon grew big enough to hunt with Dad and Mum, but they turned on Drip and told him, "You're not fierce enough to come." And he cried, "They've gone without me." And he cried, "Alack a day." And he cried, "This doesn't feel like home. I'm going to run away." So he ran off to the river, where he saw a lovely sight. And he heard of duck-billed dinosaurs all hooting with delight. And they hooted up with rivers, and they hooted up with reeds, and they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water reeds. Ah, look at them meeting again. As he stood there on the bank, a sudden urge took hold of him, and he jumped into the water and discovered he could swim. And the duckbills came to greet him by the rushy river's edge, and they hooted, "Oh, nice to see you," and they hooted, "Oh, have some veg." And Drip, who was delighted that they hadn't run away, ate bellyfuls of water weeds and played with them all day. Then he gazed into the river, and he asked them, oh, who is that creature in the water?" And they laughed and said, "It's you." Oh, there's the cob. That night, the lightning crackled, and a storm blew down a tree, and it fell across the river, and the T's all shouted, "Yippee!" And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" Drip's sisters stepped onto the bridge, but they began to frown. For there, in front of them, stood Drip, who yelled, "Look down! Look down!" Oh, look, they can see their reflections. And they looked into the water, and they each let out a yelp. And one cried, "Water monsters!" And the other cried, "Help!" Their mother scolded nonsense, and she joined them on the tree, and then she looked into the water and exclaimed, "Good gracious me!" The three of them stood trembling. There they are, trembling. And Dad said, "Get a grip. You're all of you as drippy as Tyrannosaurus Drip." He strode onto the bridge and scoffed. "I bet there's nothing there." And then he looked into the water. And he jumped into the air. And how the duckbill hooted when he landed with a crash. And the tree bridge broke. And 4 Tyrannosauruses went splash all into the water. And spluttering and clinging to the branches of the tree, they went whooshing down the waterfall and off all the way to sea. And the duckbills hooted happily. They hooted, "Hip, hip, hooray, for the heroic one and only Duck-bill Drip." Ooh! Wow, the Tyrannosauruses there don't look very happy. They still look like they don't like water. Ah, what a lovely story. Tyrannosaurus Drip by Julia Donaldson and David Roberts. Good night.